The Phoenix Suns finished 34-39 with the 10 seed last season. And I think it's safe to say that this season is different from different years from the Suns in that this year they have high expectations. Chris Paul is now in Phoenix. They lost Rubio and Oubre and Aaron Baines, but they gained Chris Paul, Jay Crowder, and Etuan Moore. I personally feel like everybody is expecting them to make the playoffs, and the only thing that can stop them from making the playoffs is if Chris Paul gets hurt, which is possible because he is injury prone. But everything going right, I think the Suns are going to be a dangerous team in the West.
I'm not as high as everybody else in them. I think they definitely have a shot to make the play, and I don't think they have a shot to make the playoffs just off the simple fact of the 8 teams we named before, plus the Warriors are on their way. So I'm not too high on them. I think they're definitely a shot for a play, and just because Chris Paul's impact is so, it's that dangerous. I think Devin Booker is going to take another step. I think he's a great player, and he showed a lot in the bubble. I think DeAndre Ayton missing them 25 games is very crucial, and he shouldn't let that stuff happen again because they need him for their production going forward. I think if he'd have played that 25 games, they could have been in the playoffs. We don't know. It's a what-if story. So he's a great player too. Michael Bridges is coming up. Cameron Johnson is coming up. Those are great players. But their bench, their bench isn't strong, after naming those guys and then Jay Crowder, that's about 6-7 guys. I don't see a lot from their bench. I don't see when Chris Paul comes out the game, who's going to play make for them, who's going to be that guy for them to control the game. When Devin Booker comes out the game, who's going to score for them? Who's going to get the ball and put the ball in the basket? When DeAndre Ayton comes out the game, who's going to be that center that's going to dominate the paint, be a rim protector? So I'm still a little iffy on the team, although I like the direction. I think they're still going to be really, really good. But I'm still iffy on the bench in a sense. So I don't know. I don't see what everybody else sees, but I do see how competitive they can be because Chris Paul is that good.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you guys said. I love the fact that they went out and went for it this year, knowing they have Devin Booker and, he's only getting older. He's not going to get any younger. You're looking at a team last season. If DeAndre Ayton plays the first 20 games, they are a playoff team. I have no doubts. They were right there as a potential playoff team in the bubble. They went 7-0, and that was without 20 games of DeAndre Ayton. 8-0, my bad. So if they had him for those first 20 games, there's no doubt in my mind they were a playoff team last year. So adding him for hopefully an entire season, bringing in Chris Paul, who beyond just him as a point guard, bringing in that leadership, and you look at how well Ricky Rubio played with them last year. Chris Paul is just going to do that at a better level. He's elite at what Ricky Rubio was doing for them last year. So you're just creating more opportunities for Devin Booker, and it's going to come down to, can Devin Booker do what he's been doing with the spotlight on him? He can score 70 points when they're losing by 10 to the Celtics, but can he do it when they're actually a good playoff team? I think he can. You guys mentioned bench depth. It's a problem, but I do like Mikal, depending on what starting lineup they run with. They have some nice pieces. So you're looking at guys like Cam Johnson, Saric, Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder are going to compete for those wing spots. And then the point guard spot is the one that's concerning from the bench. So it's going to be Cameron Payne or Javon Carter. I like Javon Carter. I think he's a dog. He's a great defensive point guard. So in those, whatever minutes you need or nights that Chris Paul might take off, I do think that Cam Payne, Javon Carter combination can hold you over. It's not the best option, but I think it can be okay enough to hold them over, especially with a guy like Devin Booker at the 2. So I feel really good about this Suns team.
I feel great about them, and I'm glad that you said it. I thought you were about to say that you're not sure that Devin Booker can do it. I'm 100% sure that Devin Booker can score even if they're winning. He's a star player.
I agree.
I think their lineup would be Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, and DeAndre Ayton. That gives them the most defensive versatility, coupled in with shooting. And I like Cameron Payne. He brings swagger to the team. Javon Carter, you mentioned that he's a good defensive point guard. He's a great shooter. He can space the floor. He's a great shooter. Cameron Johnson off the bench, Dario Saric, even Jalen Smith that they drafted in the draft. They I think they also have Langston Galloway. I don't think they have him anymore, but Langston Galloway is pretty good with the Knicks. I remember him. Like in the draft, I wish the Suns would have drafted Halliburton instead, because I think that he would have been the point guard of the future, which is what the Suns kind of need. Because right now, this is like getting Chris Paul was a very short-sighted move. This was a move to get Booker a taste in the playoffs. But what's going to happen when Chris Paul grows older and ultimately retires or leaves Phoenix in a year or two? Well, like in 2 years, you need a point guard. And I feel like that's why Tyrese Halliburton should have been that guy they drafted this season, so he can learn under Chris Paul and become a star point guard for them. Because I think, like, not to make a comparison to a former Suns player, which I'm about to do, but Tyrese Halliburton reminds me of a guy who could turn into this guy. What's the guy that played with Charles Barkley in like the 90s?
Kevin Johnson.
Kevin Johnson. He reminds me.
Kevin Johnson kind of played. He was kind of like the Chris Paul before Chris Paul.
Yeah, like I think Kevin Johnson
would have been a perfect fit.
Tyrese Halliburton can turn into like a Kevin Johnson type of player. So if he's under the right tutelage, and I think Phoenix would have been the great place. But I mean, I think Phoenix, they have high expectations. They'll live up to it. In my opinion, they will. I see them finishing with the 6th seed in the Western Conference. I can see them as high as 4 and as low as 8.
Oh, okay. That's pretty high praise. And I want people who are probably going to watch this show, they're probably confused and don't know who Kevin Johnson is, because that's what the world is. But he was a great player. He was a 20-10 player for about 4 or 5 seasons. He was on that team where Phoenix went to the finals, and that was a great offensive team that scored a lot of points. He was a player that was really great before the injuries derailed his career. But he was on pace to be one of the best point guards of the 90s and the 80s. So shout out to Kevin Johnson. That's a great comparison, too, because they kind of play alike in a sense. So that was a great comparison. The thing why I said it was because Cameron Payne played well in the bubble, but I don't know if it's going to stretch out for a 70-game season. So it's more of a wait-and-see process for him. Javon Carter, I watched him at West Virginia. He was a dog for 4 years for those defensive teams, so I know what he's like defensively. He's going to play 48 minutes, full-court defense, and he's not going to get tired. I don't know how he does it, but he does it. And he's a great shooter, too, so I remember Javon Carter. Cameron Johnson's a 3-and-D player. I watched him at UNC when he played against them Duke teams with Zion and Cam Reddish and RJ Barrett. And he played well defensively, and he outperformed some of them too. So he's a great player. I watched him play in the bubble. So he's really good. So this team has a lot of good things going for them in the sense of youth and age. And then in terms of experience, Chris Paul is aside from LeBron, Chris Paul is the next best thing. So this is a lot. It's a good thing going for them. And plus they have Monty Williams, who's a great underrated coach. I don't know how he didn't have a job years prior. He's a great coach. He's going to build with Devin Booker. But like you said, I think this is just a taste for Devin Booker to finally get in the playoffs, get a feel of playoff basketball, understand what it's like, how it is, so then they can build more towards their future. I think they're going to be really good, and I think they can definitely get in the play-in.
Yeah, and although I didn't love the pick where they got him, I think Jalen Smith can be a solid player for them. He was good at Maryland, and hopefully he can come in and have a little bit of an impact off that bench that has some nice pieces but is still being fleshed out. I have them finishing at 8. I could see them getting up as high as like 6, maybe even 5, but I don't really see them going any lower than 10 or 11. I definitely think they're a playoff team this year, and I feel good with them at 8.